Let me ask a couple of questions. God, these lights are bright, Michael. So who all is working on a master plan right now? Okay, a number of you. Okay, who in the audience has ever been faculty, department chair, a dean of a university okay, we got one here, good. Okay, so for the most part, we're all old facilities and real estate dogs, I would say. So today we're going to talk about why I believe that master planning is dead. And one more question. How many of you are involved in an integrated planning effort at your university or college that involves academics, IT, finance, HR, facilities? Okay, good. So you have planning teams that work together in an integrated approach to help you facilitate your buildings, right? Few, okay. So it seems like we're fairly siloed and I know we all feel like we do a lot of great things, and we do, but what I want to talk to you about is the service that we do bring. Because if we don't start thinking about that, you heard yesterday them talking about we're in this crisis for financial crisis, and how many people report to the CFO? Okay, a few people, you know, they're bean counters, and they love to try to figure out how to save money, and you might be part of their savings at some point, or thinking about savings. So what I'm trying to do is make sure that we don't turn into the dinosaurs of the future. We stay relevant, and how do we do that? Okay, so we're all focused on what we do, which is service that we provide the institution. But what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about how we can change that. So stop calling it a master plan. That's the first thing. So old adage, I know we have to do it. We have to work on accreditation. In Texas, we have something called SACS. I was like, what's that? 8 years ago when I came on by, SACS, Southern Accreditation for Colleges. And we have to do that, do our master planning, right? And that's important. But what I will tell you today is that I believe the master plan in the traditional sense is really dead. So 2010, I came to the college, as Michael said, 8 years ago, and a big aha, because I was asked to put together a facilities plan, and said, okay, well, I need to sit down with the academics. They went, no, you just go do that on your own and come back to us with that book and give it to us, and then we'll, you know, put the master plan in SACS and for the accreditation, and, you know, then we'll go on down the road. Now, it's like I can't do that. So I went to the chancellor that I reported to at the time and made the case that I can't do a facilities master plan without sitting down and having an integrated discussion with the academic side. So she teamed me with the vice chancellor over academics for the institution, which was great. And we went forth, put out an RFP out to the industry, got 10 folks to come back to us, and 9 of them did this old traditional, we're going to tell you about facilities assessment, and we're going to do all the things that master plan did great. And there was no effort to talk to academics. There was one group, and it was really led by an individual at that firm that had strategic background and had a faculty background and understood. So we hired them, and what we ended up doing was basically a process, and it was a journey. We developed some really interesting things out of that process, prioritization models that were helpful. We called it the Innovation Forum, and in fact, the nickname was What If? So it was interesting last night with the what if, because we did lots of what ifs during that. But let's fast forward. So what are we going to talk about today? Why is this important? How to facilitate the change at your institution? What's visioning? And a few takeaways, okay? So TCC Facts, a little bit. Who's community college in the room? Okay, just a handful. So the rest of you are basically for your institutions, and so I get that. So a little bit about who we are. Tarrant County is in Fort Worth, Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is one of the fastest growing. I think Tarrant County is actually the fastest growing in the nation, or one of the top ones. So we've got an influx of folks. I grew up in Fort Worth, believe it or not. I had a stint in Chicago and New Jersey, but for the most part have been there most of my life, so I could call myself a Texan. And it was that place over there that other people sent their kids to. It's kind of the transfer college. You know, I didn't know much about it, I'm ashamed to say, until I went to work there 8 years ago, because I had a relationship with the Chancellor, and I'd been at Radio Shack. And so a little bit about my background. Michael said Radio Shack. Most of my career has been on the private sector side, in the service side with a company called CB Richard Ellis for about 15 years. And then I went to work for one of my favorite clients, Tandy Corporation, Radio Shack, and was fortunate enough to build their headquarters, 1 million square feet in downtown Fort Worth. That was bought by the college, and shortly after, I went to work there to help oversee all of their assets. So we have, again, 100,000 students. We are debt-free, and our controller has about $300 or $400 million under her desk. We are sitting pretty. That's very unique for community colleges in the country. We're one of the 15th largest. You can read the stats about our real estate, how many colleges. We're all one accreditation. So contrary to some other community colleges like Dallas or Maricopa in Phoenix, those are all separate colleges accredited separately. So why is this all important? So what's important is what we give back to the community. I think it's really important how we partner. And so I think these kind of conferences are great to come here and get to know you as universities and how we can work together in the communities on giving an experience to our students. Our Chancellor, new one, as of about 1.5 years ago, he came from Maricopa, a community college in Phoenix, if any of you know that. It's 11 colleges in that system, so large. He opened up the corporate college there in Phoenix, and then came to Fort Worth about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. So he's got more business acumen and background than any higher education person that I was around for, a guy that's PhD and been at 7 different higher education institutions around the country. So I was really excited that they picked him because we kind of see eye to eye and understand one another. And his whole focus is around repositioning our institution. And we're very fortunate in Fort Worth that we're there with a number of higher education. We've got SMU in Dallas, we've got TCU, which most of you sports folks know about. We've got Texas Wesleyan, we've got UTA, University of Texas in Arlington. So we're surrounded by a lot of four-year institutions, and how we play with them and partner with them and do things with them is very important. So the first observation he had when he came to Tarrant County was, first of all, he couldn't believe how small our foundation was. For an institution of our size, it's about $9–10 million. And he opened the paper, and in the paper was an article about how they were giving, had raised $300 million for our zoo. So you think, God, $300 million for animals, and we can't seem to raise more than $10 million in our foundation. So he set out to try to change that. And that is advertising or a PR sort of effort to get people to understand, what does a community college do in a community and why is it important? So I wanted to take a second to share with you a little bit about why it's important. And I think if I click, it is going to click onto a video that he put together and has been out in the philanthropic community talking about it. And so here we go. It's just about 2 minutes.
I knew she'd found her match. So, cheers to Brian and Ashley. That was stupid. All right. She totally stopped going to class and.
social security number. 4, 5. Yeah. No.
Hello, I need help, please. Hello, is anybody here?
I've got a car crash, 1 victim trapped, need assistance. Get a line on the ground! Hey, I'm gonna get you out of there, okay? Stay with me.
How are we good to go? Okay, blade please. Incision. All right, let's go, Bubby.
Hi there, you Jesse? Yes, I'm Kyle. Nice to meet you. Come on in.
It looks like someone has hacked into your bank account here. I think we got it in time. It looks like we're going to be able to recover most of your assets. Why don't you go ahead and get your bank on the phone?
You'll be just fine, Anna.
So a little dramatic, you might say. First time I saw it, I was like, okay, where are you going to show that at? And when we showed it at our community, at our college with our faculty, you know, there was a lot of questions about diversity, and we had to remind them, you're not the audience, okay? The audience is that philanthropic person that gets up every day and may take a plane or a train or an automobile, and we train those pilots, we train those maintenance workers for that airline. If you got a traffic ticket driving here to Houston, that police officer may have gone to our police academy. If you got your blood drawn, we probably did it if you're in the DFW area. So it's all about making it relevant to what we do in the community. And so we are a transfer college, and it's important, and we have those partnerships with the universities to transfer, but it's really about getting people into jobs. There's 6.8 million jobs open today, and there's 6 million workers that don't have the skills to get into those jobs. And who does that hurt? It hurts all of us. It hurts everybody in the community if we can't figure this out. So we got to work together, because there's certain people that have children that are not set up to go to college. They're just not, they can't do that, but they need to get into a job. So us all working together. So I know I'm getting off onto something outside of facilities, but I think it's important. Also, I wanted to note that I think it's similar to a lot of the universities that have R&D, and really we saw a presentation this morning about the Cornell, and we all have complex facilities, but when you get into the technical programs like we do, I mean, keeping up with the fire training center when they're blowing up stuff all the time on your campuses, and you got fire trucks, and you know, all that was filmed on our campuses. And we got a firing range, we got 5 natatoriums, we got 5 performing arts. I mean, it's all complicated stuff. So it's a little different than just having classrooms that we have to keep up with at our community college. So a little bit about who we are, and I thought that was important, but let's get back to facilities and talking about a little bit more about what we do. So master planning. And I contend to you today that this is kind of the old way of master planning. We got to be innovative, okay, in how we're providing this service, okay. I heard a lot of talk about, we are a service group, and that is important. But I think we need to change the playing field and how we're positioned in the college with the faculty and the staff. We're always, you're our client, the students are our customer and all that, but we need to get on a playing field that we're actually working together, okay? Because when you're viewed as the service arm of an organization, what does everybody expect for you to do? We're like property managers, You're expected to do that. But if you get on a more level playing field, and what I say, there's no substitute for actually knowing what you're talking about. And how many of you feel, I've got that Rodney Dangerfield kind of, we don't get enough respect, or like the redheaded stepchild, Part of that is we do it to ourselves, okay? We don't do a good enough job with the academic people, the PhDs, that we work around every day. And I don't know how many people have a PhD in this audience. Okay, I don't. I've got a bachelor's, and when I think back, I wonder how I got through in the 5 years. And most of who I am today is what I learned along the way in the jobs that I had. So it wasn't back in school in those 5 years right out of high school. And I think, I was a bit intimidated 8 years ago when I came to work there with all these PhDs, and they were like, what do you want us to call you? And I was like, well, you could call me Nurse Nina, because I'm around a bunch of you doctors. I mean, I don't know, call me Nina. But, I'm sure in your environment, everybody's called doctor, and it's kind of an intimidating thing. Well, the fact of the matter is, we're really good at what we do. And a lot of us are licensed and trained, and are engineers and are licensed architects and all that. And that's important. But for whatever reason, we get kind of, I believe, put sort of on this shelf that we're this service group, we're just expected to do it, and they really don't understand the expertise that we really bring to the table. So I want to talk a lot about that here today. But what I contend is this is sort of a factory way of doing things. It's more targeted on buildings, it's more targeted on our assessments, and that's all really good, but you know who that's important to? Us. You know who doesn't care about that stuff? All your clients, okay? They don't care. They just expect us to do our job and keep all that up. So how do we become relevant? How do we really change the mindset? So we're not a book of projects on a shelf. It's not about traditional land use and planning and zoning. All that's really, really important, right? But if you don't have constant engagement with your faculty and your staff and your students, you're not going to be relevant. I believe that we will not exist. We will be outsourced at some point. So my job is to try to figure out how, I don't know if it's self-preservation or what, but I like working and I like doing what I'm doing. I just want to figure out how to add more value doing that. Okay, so what is it? If it's not master planning in the old traditional sense, what is it? Well, I believe it's about the process, and it's really pretty messy. And if you're not comfortable with ambiguity, I think this will not work as well for you. And a lot of us are either engineers or architects, and we like things that are neat, and we like to put them in places and have a system, and that's important. But when you're dealing with academics, it's messy, okay? And you got to get comfortable with that, because they're not going to come along the ride as easy as you want it to be, I would say. So we spend a lot of time looking at what's the important data. We heard about data this morning. Somebody said, well, data is only important if you figure out what it's relevant to or how it plays into what you do. So there's a lot of data that's really important to our faculty. And that's the data that you got to get your brain kind of wrapped around. It's about enrollments. It's about success for the student. Our chancellor says, we got to quit saying that student isn't college ready. What we got to do is become institution or student ready, okay, for that student. We got to figure out as an educational institution how we morph and change into something that can help them be the best that we can. You look at the educational institution, it hasn't changed much over the last 100 years. You look at technology and cars and everything, everything's evolving. But you go to a classroom and it's still in a lecture. The kids don't learn that way. They learn with devices in their hands. They're doing a lot more shared. They don't like being lectured to. So we've got to change how an educational institution's going to help these students get into jobs and be productive. So it's messy, and I believe that everybody needs a secret weapon. And so I want to introduce you to my secret weapon today. When I came on board 8 years ago, I made a couple of critical hires right off the bat, and Margaret Layton was one of those first people that I got introduced to, and in a minute tried to recruit her to what I call the dark side of real estate. And Margaret was important, and why she's a secret weapon to me is she's been with the college 21 years now. She taught in the classroom for 15 at one of our 6 campuses. She started as an adjunct because she was working, she got her schooling at Texas Tech in architecture, and she went on to do adjunct while she was starving in the architectural industry and they weren't paying her enough, so she started teaching at one of our campuses. That adjunct turned into a full-time position. She became a dean, a department head, a department chair. She won 2 Chancellor's Awards for excellence, one in teaching and one in innovation. I was like, this woman's a rock star. I got to bring her in. She can help me learn what this creature called faculty and these students at a community college are all about. So I recruited her in, and I will tell you, she is a game changer for us because I put her out in front of all my real estate dudes and gals that are all look like, you know, we're a bunch of old dogs. And she not only helps be the mouthpiece to the faculty and staff and students, but she helps educate us. She makes us relevant. So today, I'd like to bring her up on stage and have Margaret talk to you a little bit about what visioning is and why, when we proceeded on this journey around the plan that I talked about we did in 2012, when the new chancellor came in, I said, okay, here we go again. So I went in and talked to him about, hey, we'd like to do this different. We'd like to be integrated with what you're doing on the faculty side. We'd like to initiate a visioning initiative. And we'd like to go out to the architectural community and find somebody that can help talk to us about visioning at the campus level with your faculty. What do you think? And he was all over it. So I introduced him to Margaret. He quickly said, wow, she's got to be one of your best hires. And I said, yes, she is. And she has helped lead the charge for this visioning across the college. But I will tell you, it's almost like we're like Harry Potter with the invisible cloak. The institution doesn't know we're leading it, okay? They think the chancellor's leading it and he's doing it, and we're just sort of in the background, which is really cool. So here's Margaret Layton to talk a little bit about this crazy graphic we have up there.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Nina. And yes, I do love my boss. So we did begin with visioning Charettes, and the Charettes really started district-wide. We used a team called Ayers St. Gross, if you're familiar with them. They do 100% higher ed institutions. They're an architecture firm. So we started with them, and we did these visioning Charettes. It spanned students, faculty, staff, VPs, presidents, vice chancellors, and everybody in the organization. We had groups of 40 to 50 people. We did multiple Charettes throughout the district. We even included our online campus and a district session. After we finished these, you can see kind of the components of what we considered visioning and our visioning Charettes. They were transformative. It was a good opportunity for them to have their voice be heard, and they really felt that way, and they once again felt like they were leading this. It wasn't just a facilities thing. It was definitely through academics. It was flexible. Every campus was a little bit different. Every charrette we did was a little bit different on each campus. We did keep sustainability at the top forefront of our mindset, and it was a very creative process and very, very successful. You want to move me forward? Thank you. The outcome of that were 3 goals, very simple. And this is not only goals, but this is our mission. This is it. Everything revolves around these 3 things, very simple. One college, student-ready college, and serve the community. As Nina mentioned, we wanted to be a student-ready college instead of being a college that is students that are college-ready. And we also wanted to serve the community. We know that there's going to be about 33,000 jobs in Tarrant County in 2020 just in the medical profession alone. So we know we want to meet those industry needs in those middle skilled jobs. From there, it led to 8 guiding principles. The 8 guiding principles are everything that we deal with on a daily basis. And these 8 guiding principles, although they look academic, their facilities is right there in the middle. So is technology, right there in the middle. The 2 that are highlighted, integrated instructional learning environments and learning commons. The integrated instructional learning environments are actually our classrooms, and we're trying to teach teachers how to teach in active learning environments. We actually have had experiential classrooms for a number of years, but they weren't using the classrooms properly or with new pedagogy. So we now know we need to go and train our faculty and teachers how to teach in these classrooms. The other one is learning commons, which is libraries, and we all know what the evolution of libraries is going through right now, that we have to take a look at how these facilities are being used. And it kind of goes back to that facilities talk we had this morning, where we were mentioning that this morning. We do have a little video. The very first thing we did was an event called the Learning Symposium. This was designed by faculty and staff, and the Learning Symposium was probably the best event we've ever had in the history of the college. We did it totally different. We tried to think outside the box, and it was the best $49,000 we've ever spent from a facility standpoint. We actually took experiential classrooms and created them in an exhibit space at a convention center, and we let the faculty see how they would be used with students and kind of model faculty and model students. Highly successful, and we have a little video we want to show.
We wanted to do something totally different.
It was an experience that was unforgettable.
The Learning Symposium was an amazing culmination of the work of a lot of people.
Today's presentation spoke to the big picture of where we are headed in the transformation of this great college, and also talked about the neuroscience of learning.
Being able to have a keynote speaker like Dr. Janet Zadina was wonderful because it set the tone for the day and allowed our faculty and staff to think about learning in terms of the brain.
Our brain is plastic, and so it's the experiences that we have that will determine our ability to learn and move forward, and that's what today is all about.
When you think about learning in terms of the brain and then you get an opportunity to experience an actual sensory experience with furniture, with faculty and students, is fascinating.
One of the most exciting things about the idea of developing learning commons and integrated learning spaces is that we are going to get away from the rows, the soldiers within a room where students are sitting passively. We are no longer the sage on the stage as an instructor, but rather we are part of a learning group.
There's purpose to the space. It wasn't just thrown together. It was very deliberate use of space.
It's not just lecture, but it's small groups, it's discussion, it's interactive. It helps with that retention, and it gives me feedback quicker.
Working with PowerPoint slides or straight lecturing works for some kids, but for everyone else it doesn't. So having more interactive learning kind of helps them figure out what works best for them and helps them succeed overall.
Along with the collaborative environment was also just the idea that the furniture just creates a relaxed environment.
I'm very fidgety and I can't sit still for very long. So having like a standing desk for me, it's amazing.
We created a synapse experience where we could connect those dots. In the words of Janet Zadina, we could fire and wire and really reinforce the ideas that we learned in the morning and then bring it all together in the synthesis experience.
My definition of active learning, the teacher not standing behind the podium or sitting down, but actively engaging with the students.
Students are actually engaged. They're actually doing something. Active learning is not about having the right answer. It's about creating the questions and finding the answers as well.
Presenting a concept on screen, but then letting students immediately practice and apply.
It enhances the learning process because students are learning and they're having fun, and it takes away some of the stigma of being in school.
One of the students, at the close of the section, she was like, wow, can't this happen? Can this happen in my campus? I said, yeah, I think that's what we want to do.
Now that the symposium is over, we feel like this is just the beginning.
The 3 goals and 8 principles are more than just another initiative that's being passed down to us. These are goals that we designed, and by we I mean faculty, staff, across all levels. Now we're moving from defining a vision to actually taking action and implementing these strategies or these actions that we defined.
We can't do this work alone. This has to be very grounded in the faculty and staff experience so they can be the experts that they are and do the best job possible for our students.
It's an open vision, and that I think is something that is very unlike what we have done here. In fact, it's unlike what most colleges have done.
So that was, once again, a very highly successful event that we had. That's the kickoff to those first of the 8 guiding principles. We're going to continue working on these. The Chancellor has told us there's no real timeline. Some of these may happen faster than others. He's alerted the college to that this isn't something we're going to cram down everybody's throat, but they're going to evolve over time. And it was the outcome of these visioning sessions that highly successful.
Thanks, Margaret.
You're welcome.
Yep, that's good. So Margaret really led the charge in from sort of her subtle behind-the-scenes way of getting this symposium off the ground. So each of these principles have a campus president that is championing them. And so each president, who's the champion, also has an advisory team. That advisory team is made up of 3 stools, so it's a 3-legged stool. It's somebody in facilities, somebody in IT, and the practice people. And that's sort of a forced sort of structure to it from the Chancellor down of saying the presidents were going to be assigned to these. So as Margaret pointed out, the 2 in red, the classrooms and the learning commons were the ones that we took the first move on. And so Margaret is really going to be assigned to most all of these, but what's important here is how do you as a facilities department get involved with this and be part of it. So part of this whole thing, and I hope we don't go, yeah, good, is structure and how you're structuring your real estate departments and facilities departments. And this is important, and it's taken me 8 years, candidly. I'm sort of putting the final touches on it because when I came in, it was 250 people of doing a lot of stuff. And when a project would go south on a campus and I'd get a phone call from, a president, I'd have to call 8 people to figure out what was going on. I'd have to call the architect and the planning. I'd have to call the engineers. I mean, it was crazy. And I was like, this is not working for me. I need one throat to choke. So I have actually 7 directors, and Margaret's the most senior executive director of the group, reporting up. And then for the most part, as you see, I've facilities operations, which is the bulk of it, my custodial, landscape, general maintenance, and all those folks, and that's 175 or so people. And then what I call our district staff, our professional staff, which are the folks that are, for the most part have either architectural backgrounds or engineering or have some expertise, project managers. Those are what I call our district staff. So They're mostly on this construction side, so I've got a fairly good, robust staff of folks in the construction that implement projects. But what I did about a year and a half, 2 years ago is I took 4 of my most seasoned individuals, and I basically told them they needed to get out of the weeds and quit project managing my projects, okay? And because I needed them to come up kind of at the strategic level talking to me about things, because I can't be doing it alone, and I can't be just me and Margaret. I got to have more people kind of engaged with the faculty on these things. So the 4 people that I picked hold the roles that are in color. So Margaret's obviously our academic planner, doing strategy, and she's jumped into the principal that was on the classrooms, but I see her sort of engaged in all 8 of them in some way or another. I took a licensed architect that came from HKS that I hired back about 8 years ago. He'd spent an entire career at HKS, so it was his first time in higher education. And in some days he struggles still 8 years later with how does this place really work, and how can I provide the best service. And so he runs architectural services and planning, but him and Margaret work very closely together because of their architecture background. The 2 individuals on the bottom, I have one guy that's what I call infrastructure strategy. He's been with the college 25 years. He's an engineer, electrical. I'm very fortunate to have him. And he focuses a lot around sustainability, utilities, and focuses on engineering and all our mechanical, electrical, plumbing projects. We have about $200 million of projects that need to be done in that arena across the campus. And so he's doing the planning for those along with his colleague that is over engineering strategy, also an electrical licensed engineer. So these 4 are my most senior folks, and I went to them and said, I got to get you in the game because candidly, we're paying you a lot of money, and I need you up here interfacing at the board level with the faculty and at the table with me, and doing all the planning. So I said, what are you passionate about? Because I'm real big into managing people to their strengths. I mean, I'm not going to take somebody and try to manage them into something that they're not good at. So I said, what are you passionate about? What are those things that are important to you? And my director over engineering strategy is a guy that said, transportation is really important to me. So he's become the transportation planner for the district, which is really important for us because we're trying to get people out of blight to the college and into a job. So how people circulate in a community like ours between 6 campuses is pretty important, and we have not very good transportation fortunately, in the Fort Worth area. It's better in Dallas. So each one has sort of held up their hand and said, this is a principle that I would like to be involved with, and I'd like to be passionate about it, and I will work with you. It took a little while for them to sort of understand where I was going with it, but today I will tell you, they feel like they're more part of the institution. I give them a lot of focus in front of the board and in front of the leadership of the organization on these 8 principles, and that's how it's really worked for us. So moving ahead, as you can see, visioning is a big part of everything we do, but it's been led by the faculty, by the chancellor, but each one of those 8 principles are all around facilities. I mean, that's what it is. We just sort of disguise it. This is their vision. It's not ours. It's their vision. They've told us what they want at their campuses, and we've just packaged it in a way, and we're just sort of behind the scenes making it happen. We've still got to do all the things that work. We have 35,000 work orders a year, all that churning stuff that we all feel real good about and kind of pound our chests and say, this is what we do, and we do a good job of it. I'm telling you that your faculty don't care about any of that. What they care about is what you're going to do to help them teach in the classroom, how you're going to help, and a lot of them, I mean, Margaret's a great example. I mean, she was one of those people that sat outside her building and said, it's my building, don't come in here, don't tell me when to do classes, don't mess with my space. This is my space. Well, whose space is it really? It's your colleges or your universities or the district's space, okay? It's not that faculty member's space, and you got to keep up with it. So that's a balance in how to have a conversation with a faculty member that basically looks at that as their classroom, and you're not going to mess with it. So we're doing a lot in trying to help them understand that if we don't understand where their pain is in the classroom with their students, we can't help affect that change. So takeaways for today: add value or you will become extinct. You will be outsourced. And I don't think anybody in this room wants to be outsourced. Maybe you do. But I think you can become more valuable in the institution you're at if you reposition your thinking and become more a part of the faculty team. And quit saying they're your client, okay? They're your colleague. And you should all be working together with them on these problems, not just solving their heating and air conditioning and their climate control and all that. I mean, they want all that to happen. That just needs to magically happen behind the scenes. You got to figure out how to engage with them in more of an intellectual conversation about what they're doing and have them really believe that you care about it. So planning happens continually, not just every 5 or 10 years. And I think when I came to the district, we didn't really do a very good job of facilities master planning at all. And there was no academic plan. I mean, it was happening. They were doing programmatic planning, but it hadn't really ever come together. But it's not just something you do every 5 or 10 years for accreditation. It's got to be something that you do every single day. Working with integrated teams in multiple departments. I think one thing that we've taken lead on in a very kind of subtle way is organizing integrated planning training. I mean, the fact of the matter is my 4 seasoned folks were like, what are you going to do with me? And what do I have to, they were happy going off and implementing their projects, planning them, and then kind of getting in the weeds and staying there and being sort of behind the scenes. For me, I was saying, unless you're planning in a room with academic people or finance people or IT people, you don't really understand how to do it. So SCUP, many of you know, Society of College and Universities has an institute that does planning. Margaret's gone to all 3 of them. They give you lots of skill sets on how to do that together. We've brought a group together that's starting to reach into the faculty. We brought the head of our Teaching and Learning Institute into it to sort of help us roll this out to the faculty and how we can all plan together and have sessions with them. So this one we did in early February of this year, and we're going to be doing those sort of planning sessions and teaching people how to work together as teams to do this. And it does not take the place of condition assessment. All the things that we have to do behind the scenes still has to happen. So this is sort of like taking on a whole new job. So that is it. I hope you got something out of this. I'm here for the remainder of the conference here to answer any questions, but I'd open it up now to any questions that you might have that either one of us could answer.
Let me give you the microphone. Great presentation. Who was the keynote speaker on the neuroscience of learning?
Dr. Zadina, and she was great. I actually had guys in my real estate group because, again, we were doing this all behind the scenes, but asked if they could come because it was fascinating learning about the brain. The faculty was so engaged this day. I don't know if you have faculty events where, they're all-day conferences or whatever, and by 3 o'clock, the room's half full. And I think they were calling like their friends because like the room got bigger as the day went on. And a lot of our real estate and facilities people were there because we were helping coordinate the steel case furniture in. But, I was kind of a little terrified that it was all going to be about furniture. They were all going to come out, coming up to me wanting to order a bunch of furniture. But the whole thing being about the brain and thinking differently and how they needed to teach and pedagogy and all that stuff, they really focused more on the environment from what it's going to do for their teaching and what it's going to do for the students. So again, we were kind of the backdrop, but we really were the ones that we were the backbone. We were the ones that put on the whole event. So it was cool. She was cool. I would have her as a speaker. I think she's pricey though, from what I understand.
Where is she from?
I'm not sure. Well,
Margaret can get you the contact information. Yeah. She was really entertaining. At first I was a little, but when she got into it, it was really dynamic. She had a lot of points about how you learn that broke the model of your stereotype of things. It was interesting.
She has a couple of books online too.
Yeah, she does have books online.
Excellent presentation. Congratulations on some of your disruptive things that you've been doing.
But my question is, those other community colleges, other thousands of community colleges that don't have $300 to $400 million on your boss's desk, they're not growing, they're shrinking. How do they get engaged through this process in those difficult situations that they're all experiencing?
That is a great question, and one that we're kind of noodling with, because my chancellor, my boss, came to me, and he does a lot of national work on a lot of these community college associations, and was chair, Margaret, help me out, of
National Center for Entrepreneurial Community College.
Yeah, right, and then he's also involved in
ECC.
AACC, which, see, she's my cheat sheet on all this academic stuff, who is looking at this, because there's a lot of community colleges, unlike Tarrant County, that are either in rural areas, you know, don't have the resources, and so there's some talk now about Tarrant County College becoming a model. They've just taken the first step with this with IT service providers, that bringing them together, looking at TCC and how we do things, and then ultimately maybe using our in-house people to help other institutions do what they need to do. So like my chancellor was saying, you know, maybe you could go to other community colleges and help them, and I'm looking at them thinking, okay, I don't have enough time in the week to get everything we got to get done, and now you want me trudging off to another community to help them. But I think that's in the works, because there are a lot of community colleges that don't have the resources, and again, they serve a very important role in the community based on what I said, and we've just got to all, as a nation, figure this out. If we're not communicating these kids, we're going to be all in a mess, because those 6 million unskilled laborers are in your communities using your resources. We got to figure out how to get them into jobs, whether it's, you know, certificates or whatever, and then getting them onto the four-year institution if that's the way it is. We just all got to work together on that. But more to follow on that one, because I think we're really thinking about how we can help the smaller colleges.